we are live.
Yeah. I'll just give you an idea.
Good morning.
LMNOP?
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Glens Falls Industrial Development Agency. This is our January meeting and the first meeting of our new fiscal year and of the new calendar year. So welcome and thank you. I'm going to ask everyone to identify themselves for the record. We are on Zoom and it's being recorded and will be on our website. And so let's start with the members and then we'll go to staff and then we'll go to guests, if that's okay. And so I'll start first. I'm Judy Calagero.
I'm Jane Reed.
I'm Mary Gooden. Denise Conklin.
John Cordes.
I'm Carolinas Council.
I'm Jeff Flagg, CEO.
I'm Pat Dowden. CEO, right, sorry. CEO of the LDC, right, sorry.
Mark Toomey.
And
Steve Babson.
Taylor Supernon.
Andrew Cox. David Dammerman.
okay.
Thank you.
And Peter.
And Peter.
And Peter.
And
Peter Pace.
Peter.
Yes.
On video.
Roger.
Yes.
Did you get on?
And Steve, you're going to, at some point, talk with us about investments. And so when we get to that part, come on up and take the empty seat up here.
Okay.
All right? And then we'll get you on video for some.
Okay, should apply makeup.
All right.
Too late for that. No.
So we have a quorum. Mayor Bill Collins is not with us today, and I believe that Lois Robinson is traveling and maybe watching on Zoom. So Lois, if you are, Happy New Year.
Hi.
And our staff and key advisors are all here, so thank you as well. I think
Jim's
we're
not
missing
here.
Jim Thatcher.
Jim Thatcher's not here yet.
And he's not coming
He was,
today.
I don't believe so, he was sick.
He was,
So,
okay.
yes.
Oh, sorry to hear that, all right. Issues, but I'm gonna leave it up to our CEO, Jeff Flagg, to cover those items, and I'll jump in as needed, Jeff. So let me turn it right to you for discussion with Steve Babson.
Yeah, okay, so Steve, you can come up here if you like to. This doesn't need to be terribly complicated. We've talked a few times in the last probably half year or so that as interest rates were climbing and as the IDA and also the LDC for that matter have sort of fund balances that are either being held for other purposes or simply the cash balances that the agencies have, that particularly in those recent past as interest rates have climbed, that there might be some better use of funds rather than sitting in a checking account making essentially zero. Checking accounts are still paying pretty close to zero for whatever reason, but if you stick your if you expand your horizons, I should say, just a little bit more, you can find some reasonably fruitful investments that are still very safe that you haven't been able to find for a long time. So I have known Steve for a while. Steve works downtown with Edward Jones in the what is it? The Smith Flats building, I believe.
Smith Flats, yep.
Of course, Peter Hoffman's building that was restored, I believe, with some of
Our
the
mo-
IDA
some of
support.
our money.
I don't think that was a driver behind our decision. It was your own. But it certainly is coincidental and fortuitous. But I wanted to sort of look at the possibility of sort of some safe investments. I know you might have a little information about it for this, but essentially what we're looking for is very, very safe investments. I believe our charters mandate, if they're not FDIC insured, then they have to be sort of government supported, usually by the federal government. So if you want to just talk a little bit about what might be available to us, that would be great.
So I have all sorts of sheets. If you guys want, okay, I didn't know if we wanted to do this or not. This is kind of a just overview. I have more specific, like CDs, treasuries, things like that I actually brought, but they're a little more complicated. I think a nice overview talk and maybe some questions is a good way to start. Anybody need one?
Did you get one, Kara? Kara, did you get one?
No, I'm
One more.
Yeah, you want that?
One more. Cell phone. All right.
So, as Jeff was saying, don't know if you guys noticed the market last year, but not only do we have an awful year in the stock market, the bond market was actually the worst year ever in the history of the market, ever. So what that has done is actually brought these rates, as Jeff was saying, to a point where it's to me the first time really since I've started that it's worth talking about fixed income. So what I have you guys around the room right now is just our rates at a glance sheet. And this is from a couple days ago, but pretty darn updated. And essentially what it shows is there are some CD options, there are FDIC options insured, and there are treasury options insured, T-bills, T-notes, T-bonds, really bills are that short-term kind of thing that I think would fall into more appropriate for you. And there are some tax benefits on that, which I'm not a tax professional, so whoever does taxes for the for the city would certainly give some insight on that. But the bottom line is there are investments out there that are doing around 4-ish% right now and above that are going to be able to be not market. So you're not going to have this up and down craziness. I'm not going to say there's not going to be some fluctuation. I mean, there's definitely details that I would really like to get into in regards to how they actually work. But again, there are some really safe places to put some money and actually make some money right now, and it's the first time in a long time. I mean, it's January. Back, less than a year ago, rates were 1%, the rates that I was looking at. So it's a drastic shift, and this is where we are right now. So if there is cash sitting on the sidelines, there's a chance to do something with it in a really safe manner.
Is there a minimum deposit here?
So I mean, CDs are it's about $1,000. So,
Okay.
Yeah, great question.
And just for the members' benefit too, this conversation really is for the benefit of both the IDA and the LDC, and maybe even more importantly, the LDC and the funds that, the loan funds that we control, the USDA loan funds that we have.
Right.
And I believe they need to be FDIC insured, and so
Even-
what I'm looking at here,
Even T-bills wouldn't, I mean, you'd
Oh,
think
maybe.
that the
Yeah,
T-bills
I
would
think
be
they have to be-
qualified.
So
that's-
full faith and credit of the- of
That's
the-
our
Of
own
the
treasury
federal
that we
government.
are investing back in.
And
You
so,
would think, right?
so I had some questions coming in, like I really wasn't sure what you were allowed to go into, but I figured I would start very, very safe and go from there.
Yep.
So that's the thing, once I really have that, okay, this is exactly what we can go, then I can come back and say, this is really, these are the options that I would say that I would suggest, if that makes sense.
Yep.
and if we could do a 6-month,
Sure.
and if we can do a treasury, it looks like that 4.55% that you're
Yeah.
mentioning here would be.
Yep. And they fluctuate, but it's gonna be, I mean, at this point, pretty darn close to it. I left my inventory yesterday at 6:30 the office, and I checked it before I left, and the rates were still right around there. They will change, I know that things take time to get this stuff done,
Right,
but
before we get
they're
in.
gonna, I would imagine they're not going to change that much in the next month or so.
YTM to the 10th, what is that?
Great question. So, when I talk about what you make, YTM means yield to maturity. So
Okay.
when I tell you yield to maturity, that means that when this investment is over, so let's say we buy an investment today and it matures on January 12th, 2024, and it's, let's say, for example, it was going to be 4.65% for the 1 year. At the end of the 1 year, you would have that 4.65%, so that's what that yield to maturity means. I will also tell you YTW, which is yield to worst. What is the worst case scenario? And that is what I lead with. That is what I tell you, the least amount of money that you could possibly make on this thing if we hold it till, the plan. I will tell you what the worst case scenario is, if that makes sense.
Can we presume that, if you're talking about CDs versus, let's say treasuries, that treasuries are more marketable in the sense that you don't have penalties, you just may have some lesser costs that you're gonna get if you sell it early?
Very good. So the way that our CDs work, they are brokered CDs. So if you buy a CD for today, the best example I can give is, let's say you buy $10,000 worth of CD today and it costs you $50 to buy it. So tomorrow when you see your statement, it is going to cost you, you're going to see a CD that is worth $9,950. Now again, at that day of maturity, you get that entire $10,000 back plus the interest that you made. So that's the thing. If you decide to sell that CD in the middle, again, which wasn't really the plan, there could be some fluctuation in value. It's generally not a lot, But if interest rates skyrocket in in a month, and you say a month later, I want to sell this thing, there could be a loss there, and there probably would be. There would be at 100%. If rates go up and you decide to sell the CD after you buy it, it will go down. But that's why, again, like we would make a plan with the idea that it will stay till maturity. But there is going to be some fluctuation that needs to be definitely known, if that makes sense.
And does that distinguish itself from a T-bill, for instance, if you have,
It's going to be fluctuation on a T-bill too.
okay.
Yep.
Sure. Is there any, so if you reinvest at expiration, is there new cost?
So that's the nice thing about these. Like I said, like that, your cost would be $50,000. As long as you hold these instruments to maturity, the actual cost is zero because you get all the money back at the end. If you sell it before, there could be a cost, and again, I would say that there would be a cost involved.
Right, so
Yeah.
but if you should reinvest at 6 months or whatever,
Yes.
there's a new cost.
Exactly.
And whatever that cost is that day. You're not,
Exactly,
you're not
whatever
tied
that-
to the 50.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. And
Yeah.
I'm just using, honestly, that is a high.
I
I would rather
agree,
go
but- right.
over than under.
Right.
So, but again, my point is that if we hold them, the plan is in place, we hold them until they mature. Every time you put into it, you get back plus the interest. Yeah.
Do you have, and I noticed that it looks like the yield curve is sort of inverted now, so long-term rates are actually
Yep.
lower than short-term rates,
Yeah.
which is sort of unusual. But can we set something up such that it's almost like on a, I don't know if I call it a ladder,
Yeah, well,
but
that's-
it's something similar to that, and you say, listen, let's get some 3-month and some 6-month, and if rates were higher, maybe even a year, and say, these would roll over. Because, I mean, I think, particularly with respect, as Judy was saying, with the LDC, there's several different accounts that might potentially have this. They're sort of, they're
Yep.
compartmentalized because they're used for different things. But you may say, well, we don't want to lock this money up for a year. We'd like to, because in 3 months there might be an opportunity, and the board says we want to loan this money out, for instance.
Yes, you stole my
So-
thunder.
Oh, sorry about that. Sorry.
So no. I
That
like
is
to
our
start
purpose.
kind of big and get more
Right.
specific. I think a CD ladder or investment ladder of 3, 6, 9, 12. So then every 3 months we have something coming up. We're talking, hey, do you have use for this money? Is it going out? Do we want to put it back in? And at that point, after the first 3 months, for another year, because then 3 months later you have another one that's coming up. So every 3 months you have a chunk of money saying, how are we going to use this?
Right.
Do we want to reinvest it? Is it going to, we're going to use it for development purposes or whatever it may be.
Right.
The bottom line for me is there will be a conversation, and whatever makes the most sense for you guys is what we'll do.
Well, and conversely, I see you have money markets, and just a standard money market is
Yep.
paying 3.5%.
Yep,
So I mean,
yep.
just cash that let's say Mark might need on a relatively, and I don't know how much of a hassle, I want to say it, but I mean, I don't know how much of a complication it is because you're obviously, we use Glens Falls National. So it's not like there would be money moving back and forth, but,
Yeah.
whether it was monthly or quarterly or whatever.
That's it, yeah.
And that money doesn't have it, even though you're not making, you're giving up a half or maybe a percent, but you also have money that's really, really, really liquid.
It's extremely liquid. Now with us, you can't come and say, give me all the money now, but within like 2 days, it would be where it needs to be. So, yeah,
But
so
that's-
very, very liquid.
But that's not FDIC insured.
So the money markets, there are some are and some aren't. So that's the thing. Like, again, I can go back, get the right information and make sure that whatever is the most appropriate and most importantly, what we need to go into is what I'm presenting you.
So may I suggest the following, that Jeff and Patrick and Kara sit down, and maybe Mark needs to be involved too, and determine what are the restrictions that we must follow for the various different funds. And why don't we start relatively small? On the LDC side, what if we look first and foremost at the USDA fund? And I think you have to look at the agreement we have with them, both in terms of the term and any restrictions in terms of
What we can do with it.
what we can do with it.
Instruments, right.
And Dan Hall and I did have a rather lengthy conference call with them well over a year ago at this time about this issue, and I believe I still have the notes from that meeting and I can share that with you. But I would look at that, and then I would look at the IDA because of the amount of money we have in the bank account, and maybe come back to the next meeting with a recommendation of what percentage of that we would do and where we would put it.
Yeah.
But I think we gotta look at those restrictions first.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and I don't think we should do everything, but I do think USDA would be ideal
Whatever we
Yeah.
have.
to help make up for the loss from the Samantha loss.
Right, and that might also give us, that in particular might give the board some idea about what, you know, if you decide that in fact it might be good to loan out again, right? Keeping in mind the possibility of loss in that case. You're talking about essentially a bulletproof return here, and then you say, well, if you're gonna loan it out, this almost gives you a benchmark to say, well, you need to loan it out for at least the rate that you'd be getting from this. I mean, unless you somehow plan to subsidize to that extent. Because if you say, well, you can loan it, you can put it in
Well,
an
that would-
investment here for 4%.
At
you
loan-
loan it at 3, that.
At
not make a whole lot
loan
of sense.
time, at loan time, that would be part of the discussion, but I certainly don't think we should be restricted to whatever income we can make, based on what we want, because
No,
our
no, no, I'm
purpose
just saying
is
it gives you a
investment,
proxy though
not
about
not
what your
to make money.
benchmark is,
Right.
right? Right now you say, well, you're making 0.07%. You go, well, oh, we can get 2%, that's great. Well, when you can get 4.5%, then you have to sort of,
And I think too, that when we look at the USDA, and I know we're not in the LDC meeting, you've got to take a look at the risk that the city has with that USDA loan, because we have an $18,000 plus loss there that we would have to pay back. If there's any way we can reduce that loss through.
Recoup it.
Yeah, recoup it through these, an investment.
Right.
right. And you
That's a
could do
different
that
story.
through loaning it, but that's not risk-free. This is risk-free.
This
And
is-
that's the real question you have to
Right.
address.
And I will just say, risk-free to the point of as long as I'm not suggesting cabin in the woods and canned goods as your investments, we're going to be okay. So as
Right.
long as I'm not saying that, I would agree with what Jeff said.
Right.
Okay.
I always love the full faith and credit of the United States government. You go, they have full faith and credit.
So we'll meet again next month on this, and we'll,
How do you feel these numbers are gonna look 30 days from now?
I think they're gonna be pretty darn similar. We
Okay.
might have another rate hike, they might be even a little bit higher.
Okay.
So, but, that, you know, they're not going, I would be very surprised if they're any lower. It's just honestly, it's gonna be inventory at that point. But, you know, I would think they're gonna be probably around the same.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's somewhere between, you know, I like that you guys are getting together and letting me know kind of, okay, this is what we can do. If you have any questions for me, I'll leave this folder with a ton of stuff in there, a bunch of cards. If anybody wants to reach out to me individually and have a deeper conversation, please do. And then again, you know, any direction that I give, I'll come in here and I'll say, thank you for, you know, the education, and this is what I think works.
any other questions for Steve Reed?
These aren't civic rates, right? These are general rates? We are not, I mean, there's no breakout between your investors in
No,
terms
yeah,
of
yes,
category?
yeah, very, very good question, yes. And I've been in contact with, in my back government office, that's one reason why I work for Edward Jones, is I love the support that I get. So I've been in contact with them. They've asked me questions, you know, like what are they appropriate to go into? And I said, oh, I'll find out very soon.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of support too to make sure that we're all doing the right thing. So,
Okay.
All right,
okay.
awesome.
Great.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Steve.
Yeah,
You're
you're
welcome.
welcome.
Yes, I'll leave this here. I'll leave a few of my cards. And again, if anybody wants to reach out to us, please do so anytime.
Okay.
Thanks, Steve.
You're
All
Mary?
right, we'll be in touch.
Hi, Mary. It's very nice to meet you. I sent an email.
Okay, next on the list, these are Wilder Bolter Partners. Judy and I and Pat, to some extent, have been in conversations with Wilder Bolter Partners. For those of you who don't know, are the developer the developer that is now in partnership with the Glens Housing Authority. So they have been working on, of course, the new, they've completed the new project over at, what's the name?
Towers?
No, you don't mean Broad Street.
LaRose.
LaRose
Yes.
LaRose Gardens.
LaRose Gardens, which is now called, whatever the address, 25 LaRose or something like that.
So, well, let me just jump in.
Go ahead.
So, the Glens Falls Housing Authority they put out a request for a development partner, and they did, that solicitation. And from that, they selected this team, Wilder Bolter Partners, to come in and be their, development partner, and they closed I think 2 years ago, on the deal, and they're now part of the ownership structure
Of their entire portfolio.
of the entire portfolio, which is 4 projects. There's 1 project in Hudson Falls, and then there's 3 in Glens Falls. 2 right here in downtown, Stitchman Towers and Cronin right across from City Hall, and then LaRose. And so 3 of the 4 required rehabilitation. And it was thought at the time that the rehab could be done with the tenants remaining in place. All properties were fully occupied. LaRose, they did need to tear down and rebuild, and so that property was emptied out and torn down and was rebuilt and is finished now. And so that piece is done, and that's reoccupied. Some of those residents, they all had a right to come back, some did. We were not, we were involved a little bit in this project initially because of an issue with the state was not going to give them a sales tax exemption, and so we got brought in terms of the idea, we got brought into the discussion, and it never came to the board level because we could not do the deal in Hudson Falls. And so the Warren, Washington IDA, which has offices across the street here, and I believe Kara also represents them. And through Kara, we went to them and said, hey, can you step in and help?
Because they could cross the boundary
They
in
could
Washington
cross the
County.
boundary, yes. And so they stepped in and they did the sales tax exemption. The project went forward, it closed. And most of the bond financing comes from the New York State Housing Finance Agency. They have a pilot agreement with the various municipalities, and then the sales tax exemption through the Warren, Washington IDA. The work that they do is very much aligned with the type of work that I do in my private business, not my work here, volunteer work. And so I am familiar with what they do. They're not a client of mine, and I am familiar with that firm. They are pretty well respected. They do this all across the state. I don't know that if they go out of the state, but they've done quite a bit. They've done some stuff down in Saratoga. And so they're involved in this deal. So they get in, and I think Cronin and Stitchman have presented the biggest issues for them. At Cronin, they determined there was an issue with the bricks, the exterior brick, and it all needs to completely removed and replaced.
Are you kidding?
No,
So the brick,
no, that's true.
it's a building from
Pieces fell off.
1970s. The
Well,
brick is falling
pieces
off.
fall off of our civic center, pieces fall off of everything that's brick, but do you mean the brick is faulty?
Yes.
The backing, the problem is that, and forgive me if I don't mean to step on you, but the issue is not necessarily the brick, but the backing behind it that has come loose after 40
Sure,
years.
that I believe.
And
Okay,
so
I
the-
can't believe the brick would,
Right, the
thank
brick.
you.
Oh, no, not
Right, I was
the
like,
brick per se. It's not the
we
integrity
have
of the
so
individual
many
bricks.
houses in our city
Oh, yeah,
that are
no,
made
no,
of brick.
No,
And
sorry.
Apparently that when they were doing some like jackhammering or something, and it started vibrating, and the pieces were falling off.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you, sorry, just
sorry.
a little panic.
And they have brought in, I did meet with them with Jeff, and they've brought in some engineering firms that have been expert in this. And I've seen some of this actually in New York City with some New York City public housing projects that I have been involved in, where we've had to go in and remove all the brick and you put something up in its place. And I cannot remember the name of it, but
Yeah, me
they
neither.
have a product that you put up.
And then do you reapply the brick, or is the brick
No,
gone?
the brick
It's
will be
It's gonna
gone.
totally change the facade.
Right.
It's gonna totally change
And I
the
think
presentation in
I
our
think it's just
downtown.
Cronin, right? Stitchman,
Yeah.
Stitchman has some issues related to
I thought that was all the utilities inside, right?
Inside,
Yeah.
it's all interior utilities that they
Right.
weren't aware of,
Right.
but not nearly as extensive as what's going on at
No.
Cronin. So Cronin is the bigger issue.
Didn't we
All
just
that-
redo Cronin?
Yeah.
All the interior's been, all the
all the
apartments have
interior.
been redone.
Yep.
Yeah.
All the apartments
Yeah.
that are done.
And yeah, so their cost increase is, I think, about 4.5 million.
Yeah,
And so they've gone back to the state, and the state is seriously considering doing that addition. They don't have a firm commitment yet, but they're working towards it. And they just want, I don't fully understand what they want from us, but I think the state wants to know that we
right.
support this happening.
Yeah, I think that's probably where
What
we are
choice do
now.
we
At one
have?
point, they had approached us
Right.
about our sort
There's
of
no
bond
choice.
allocation, that the IDA
Yes.
bond allocation, whether we could extend that to them, whatever that means. So I had approached Empire State Development, who in this case is in charge of sort of, at least from our perspective, when we, back in October, said we weren't using our bond allocation and it becomes re-aggregated, I guess I
Right,
would say.
to
the-
us, to
the
people who
state.
want it.
And
Right.
so we had sort of gone back to them and said, I don't know if there's anything left
You don't
available
have
to
it,
you.
yeah.
But if so, and
We'd
that's.
be happy for them to have the bond allocation that we didn't use,
Right,
is
And-
basically what we said.
right. Yeah, because apparently what they have to do is, I guess each apartment, I think they're gonna have to like, wall it up and then replace the wall, outside wall, and then. It's crazy.
I can't imagine.
No, it's crazy.
I can't imagine that it's cost effective to do that, rather than build a new one.
Well,
New building?
Oh,
Yes.
we tear down the building and build another one?
Yeah,
I can't imagine.
yeah,
they have
4.5
that
million
possibility, but-
versus building a new
Versus-
building, yeah, no. I think redoing the facade
Well, it's
is,
just a facade, it's not structural.
yeah.
Oh, it's gotta be structural if it's
No,
an
brick is
exterior
brick.
wall.
Brick is, well, no, it's structure,
No, the-
behind the brick. Brick
yeah.
isn't structural.
Yeah, the
So
structure.
you're just replacing the facade, you're not
Yeah.
replacing the walls.
Well, yeah,
Correct.
but it looks like they have to, in order to put the new facade or whatever they're doing. And I
They're
was going on
opening up the
description
exterior
they tried to
wall.
give was that
That's
in
what he
each
said.
apartment, they'll
Well,
like
like a
create
kick down
almost like
wall.
a false wall behind which they're gonna be working on both sides. And the tenants were like, well, can I be in there while you're doing it? Can I still watch TV? And you're thinking, while they're basically taking out your whole
The
exterior wall.
exterior, yes.
So I have in my files information on the material that's gonna be going up, and what I'll do is I'll send that around to you guys. I didn't bring it today, I'm sorry.
Does, like, the planning board get involved in
They
what
already
this,
have?
Yes,
what
they
this is
have.
gonna look like?
Yeah, and they've already approved
They
that.
have.
Okay,
It's
all
been
right,
approved.
all right.
So they've already been
yeah.
to the planning
I was
board,
there.
and they've already got that approval.
Yes.
And they saw the
And we saw it,
materials.
yes.
You did,
Mhm.
yeah.
Okay, all right.
So,
So that's where we are at this point, and we may be asked to support this in some way or another, but. until
and we have that information from them. I'm sorry I didn't bring it, but
Oh.
I did have all the information on those materials. And I do think that there were two different options that they could go with, and I think that they narrowed it down to something called, I can't remember the name of it, D something, anyways.
All right, that's where it is.
We also would be getting a bond allocation for 2023. That hasn't been done yet, and I don't think it's usually done until the end of the first quarter. And so I think that the New York State Division of the Budget does that. So we could also say that you could use that for this purpose if we wanted to, but I think what we'll do is wait and see what their
What we
bond
get.
allocation is that we get and what their needs are in terms of what HFA is doing to.
Do we assume that these allocations, annual allocations, are set at sort of interest rates that are fixed for the year, let's say?
The bonds are based on, when you issue a bond, you would put the bond out to bid, and we would then know what the rate is at that time. So each individual deal would be separate and different, and would depend on the risk.
But there's nothing for this last year's application that they're trying to get that would make it inherently lower interest rate than what they might get in
No,
the
no,
market.
no,
It was
it's
just a
bond
time,
at the time.
how quickly they could get it. Gotcha.
Right. And bonds are not just used for housing, it's used for a number of other types of activities that the state does and the Housing Finance Agency just gets a portion of that. They get an allocation too. They get an allocation, and then
They
each
reallocate.
IDA gets an allocation.
Got it.
So, and look, it's in the best interest of the state too, who's already invested in these properties to make sure that this is completed. So, they're in a similar position, I think, that we are.
And-
we want to see it done.
Where, let's suppose, for the sake of argument, this comes back up in the spring, and they say, oh, I see you've been reallocated, you know, have a bond allocation. Does the fact that this is a housing project, I mean, complicate things with an IDA, which historically doesn't support housing projects, not exclusive ones? There's no job creation, for instance, there's no industrial.
Right, but there's very little use for our bond
Good idea.
application
Right.
other than a major,
No, I understand, I'm just wondering within the
Undertaking.
parameters of what the IDA supports.
You would just be releasing your allocation
Gotcha.
back
to somebody else.
Who then
We
turns
wouldn't have
around,
to-
which is what you
we
were
wouldn't have
alluding
to
with
do-
housing finance.
We wouldn't do the pain and suffering.
Right, so we're just capping it off to another entity.
We probably could also, if were going to somehow be involved in it, you're talking about affordable housing that serves seniors and people with special needs whose incomes are probably around 30% of the area median income.
Right.
And so if you wanted to have some type of exception because it's affordable housing, then, you know, you probably could consider that. And there are some jobs. You're talking about a substantial facility that is employing a lot of management people. They do have some services there, and you're certainly creating construction jobs.
I was
which
just
are
gonna say,
temporary.
right.
So there are things that you could look at, but again, it's probably more efficient for the Housing Finance Agency, the state agency, to to amend their current financings, and update that, possibly with our allocation if we determine that.
So essentially would be either releasing it or reallocating it or reassigning it or whatever the term would be.
Giving it up.
Yeah. Giving it up, thank you for the simple term.
Right. And we'd have to determine that we didn't feel that there was another need or use for it, I think, in the community. Right.
But we hardly ever
You'd
have
probably
one.
never
Right.
have come close to reaching that allocation,
Right.
so.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry for.
Thank you.
Fun,
No,
I know
fun,
it's,
people.
There's a lot there and nothing to vote on, nothing for us to decide right now, but we wanted everyone to know that these discussions have been going on. I'll shut up.
No, because I'm actually gonna ask you about the next bullet point there, which was to set a new date,
Oh.
for the annual meeting.
All right, so,
Instead of the first week of March, the last week of March.
so
Makes
as
more
you
sense.
know, our audit
would
is
we meet
not
the
going
first
to be
week of April?
done in time.
It's a good question.
Yeah, a big
Put
part
that
of our
down in the
annual
thing.
meeting is the audit. It's not the only part of it, but it is an important part, and it does need to be approved. If we, and it's not gonna be done in time for what is our currently scheduled March board meeting. And so, do we wanna have two board meetings in March? One to do our regular annual meeting and then come back and do the audit? Or do you wanna move our monthly meeting to the end of the month when we believe we'll have that audit back and we can do everything all at one time?
And then my question was, and then we meet the next week for April?
Yeah, it'd be 2 weeks later for April, right? Because
Right.
it's the second Tuesday,
Right.
but.
Okay,
Well,
Right, but I just, this was just a one-time change, is all I'm
Correct.
saying. Yeah.
Yes, sorry. So one-time change, and so you guys talked to the auditor, do we have a,
We don't have a solid date yet, no, we don't have, because we're doing both, unless you have one, Mark? Oh, okay.
Can
So,
we
we
try
have
to
to
get
get one, yeah, we're in the process of working on that also with the block grant, so yes, because we need a date certain for that as well.
let's get them on
Yeah,
the phone this
understood,
afternoon.
understood, yeah, yeah.
All right, so, and so why did we do March 30th?
Because it was a Thursday.
Thursday? Okay,
The last.
It has to be on
It's the
Thursday.
last.
Well, we
Oh,
always
doesn't
meet on
it?
Thursday.
yeah.
I don't know why, but it's, we.
That was the, no, but that was the reason,
It's just
that
what
was
we
the
do.
reason for that decision,
So
because
let's
it's the
not
last
make a
Thursday.
final decision right now, but if everyone could
Okay.
hold that date on their calendars at 8 AM, and we'll try to get a confirmation
As soon as possible, right? Yes, right.
Is that all right?
Yep.
Okay,
And then you'll just let us know.
okay.
Yes.
We'll wait for the
Perfect.
email.
Right.
Thank you. Yes, we're just, also for the record, we haven't opened the LDC meeting yet, but we're gonna do the same thing with that too. So,
Okay.
We should do something with both at once.
I know, we should have. Okay, minutes, meeting held on December 8th, 2022. Everyone's had a copy of those? Has anyone got any changes, any questions? There being none, is there a motion to approve the
So moved.
minutes as presented? So move second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? There being none, the minutes from December 8th are passed. Financial report is for 12 months ending December 31, 2022. Mark Toomey is here. Mark, any additional comments you want to make about that report?
This, this drill bills hit for $1,605. The money transfer that happened on December 22nd to pay for account temp's piece of payroll, $7,000. The due from CDC disappeared, $3,265. And we have that late addition, about, that would be a Schedule A item for Fitzgerald for 256. Not sure how you want to deal with it.
It was pending last we knew, right?
Yep,
Yes.
so we'll do that later. So right now, let's just do the December 31. So this is our year-end report, Mark, and I assume this is going to be carefully reviewed by the auditors too, and so if there are any changes, they would be done at that time, and we would recognize them in March, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Any comments or questions for anyone for the December 31 financial report? Okay. There being none, is there a motion to accept the report as presented?
So moved.
Mary, second.
Second.
John, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays, any abstentions? There being none, the report is carried as presented. Approved, sorry. All right, so we had payment of bills, and that is the item that Mark said that was pending at the time we mailed these out, and we do now have a bill from Fitzgerald Morris Baker first, and that amount is, Mark, what?
256.
And no change? $256?
Yep.
Okay, so for Schedule A, one bill, $256 for Fitzgerald Morris Baker for work done last month. Any comments or questions?
A bargain.
A bargain. And for rental facilities.
Right.
Is there a motion to approve the payment as,
So moved.
second?
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays, any abstentions? There being none, the motion is approved and the bill shall be paid. Thank you, Kara.
We also have one for CDC. I don't know how you want to work that.
We're not gonna do that today,
Okay.
because CDC's not meeting.
Okay.
Sorry.
We have a bill for CDC? We can't have a bill for
I think it's,
Yeah, for December.
I think it's for our minutes or
Yeah,
something that
maybe
probably got
that's what we-
processed through. I mean, so, I'm not worried about
Okay.
it. This is what happens when I'm on vacation, they process. my
Right,
check.
right.
Carol was on vacation, if you can't.
Right, you can
see
sort of,
it. I
yeah,
see
right,
it.
sort
I
it
kinda
out.
see it, yeah. All right, report, project reports and resolutions. So, we have Warren Street Square LLC, which is 7787 Warren Street, across the street. This is the termination of our lease agreement and pilot. Kara, anything update on that?
No, there's no real update, it just terminates by its terms. That project pilot has ended by its terms, so we'll just, it's the same resolution that you adopted for the Elizabeth Miller's Theater project and Smith Flats project, and then we noticed that this one also expired at the end of this year, so it's the same.
End of last year.
End of black,
End of
oh,
December.
yes, end of
Wait,
2022, yeah.
Very good.
Wait, how, it's been that long, huh?
It was a 5-year, it was a shorter term.
Yeah, we did.
Right, but it's just that it's sat for so long. Right, it just doesn't feel like it's been active that long.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, you're
Right.
right, because because a lot of the construction, interior construction was delayed because it hadn't been approved by the,
United States Postal Service.
yeah.
This isn't that one, this is the one,
This is the one for the.
No, this is One Street Square, right?
yeah, further down.
Oh,
2000
this is carriage,
from
this is the carriage
2011.
factory.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes way more sense. Thank you. Okay. I was like, wow,
It's
this is,
like
right,
another 2 years.
right,
Oh, all right.
right,
He's got
thank
two-
you.
he's got about
Thank
2
you.
years left.
Right,
Yes.
right. Okay.
Yeah.
Peter's got the
Okay.
You mean the, you
This one was
Post
10 years,
office?
because we didn't do
As
these
well as the
documents.
I thought, because that's Peter also, the post
Oh,
office.
I see.
But it was his,
It's Warren Street.
his earlier development on
Yeah.
Warren Street. Thank you.
Hubert and
Thank you.
So it's
the Buckboard.
It's the carriage factory.
Yeah,
Right.
okay, I thought it was,
White, was it White and Gilbert or something like that?
Well, Hubert and White, yeah,
Yep.
that's what it is, yeah.
okay.
You can go to the Chapman and see one.
All right. All right, so that is the property. Sorry for that confusion. And so everyone has a copy of the resolution approving the termination of the lease agreement, and we've notified the developer, or we will.
Well, he's, yeah.
He knows.
He
He
knows,
knows.
because he's getting, yeah.
Okay, very good. Is there a motion to accept the resolution as presented?
So move.
Is there a second? Jen, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays, any abstentions? There being none, the resolution is carried. It shall be fully executed. If you need someone to sign,
I have
let me
no
know.
consent.
Okay, and we'll get that signed today and taken care of. And then Market Square, Jeff, you want to do an update on Spring City development?
Yeah,
Market
we've
Square.
been in contact with Spring City / Benaccio for practical purposes, Spring City Development. They're anxious to move forward. We've been working with, where we are right now is that we have submitted to, the city has submitted to Empire State Development a proposal to, I guess, reallocate or reconfigure two of the different grants, and actually to merge two of the grants, the one for the Market Center, the one for Benaccio's support in the DRI. Primarily because at this point, we're no longer looking at a parking structure for which some of that money was earmarked. So in order to sort of reallocate that to this combination of a larger project, which would theoretically include the Market Center and these three buildings, what we would call phase one, which is Sandy's Hot Shots and Incubator, as one large project that will have both of these grants sort of amalgamated. Gives a little bit more flexibility in how we can spend that. It's also makes the budget look more favorable since it's one larger project. And so we've submitted that around the holidays. We submitted that request to ESD. If we can get a favorable result, and this was largely as a result of their suggestion, by the way. It wasn't. They said we suggest you present it this way. So we've done that, and so I mean I presume that we will have a favorable outcome. Having done that, we can then, as far as the Benaccio or Spring City's portion, they're ready to move forward. So I'm guessing, and of course they're not weather dependent in the case of those existing buildings, so they could actually begin anytime and are anxious, I would say, at this point. And then of course we're planning to go before the planning board again with the Market Center in February.
Just so I'm clear, so for phase one, which is those three buildings plus the side lot, there would be the LDC would sell two of those properties, so the LDC would have a transaction.
Correct.
And then the IDA would have a transaction through their application for pilot and sales
Correct.
tax and mortgage tax exemptions for that, and that would be finalized. And then also, the city may award some additional DRI funds to that.
Correct.
But the payment to the, and I know the LDC is not meeting, but the payment to the LDC would be in keeping with the appraised values.
Correct, yeah.
We
It
did
doesn't
all
look at
that
this point like
ages
anything
ago.
would change in the LDC's
Okay.
sale of the properties.
Okay, so we'll have another update next month, and hopefully we'll have an approval by, all right. Any questions, members, any comments? No approval needed? Okay,
Hey, Jeff, can I ask?
Oh, yes,
a big
please.
question?
yeah.
So, if this doesn't get approved, what happens?
They didn't give me that option. I took their advice. I guess we'd have to make another proposal. What we have, what's really happened is that,
They have a cost increase, and they're at the same time meeting with their bank on financing terms.
I'm not suggesting that they're not right. I'm just suggesting that it's not guaranteed that their request will be
it's not
looked
guaranteed, but
favorably.
considering that this suggestion was made by a group, we met with both ESD and the Department of
Right.
State representatives who had sort of suggested this is the most efficient way of trying to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish. Because they realize that at this point, we are not, if we do build a parking structure, it's not gonna be inside the DRI zone, right? So the alternative is, well, what are you gonna do? You can't just go use that money for anything you want, even anything within the DRI that you want. You can't, we're just gonna use that money for
Oh, I know,
whatever
right.
else. The streetscaping, for instance, we have, the infrastructure, all those costs have gone up. We had asked about that. In the case of these two grants, they're both Empire State Development grants, not DOS grants. You might be aware that, remember, the
Yep.
different agencies have them. So, and again, their premise was the amount of funding that we are providing for the market center is beyond the comfort zone of ESD as a proportion of the project. And so their suggestion was, how about if we aggregate into a larger project?
So it looks better on
Between
paper.
these four buildings, we're now talking about a $13 to $14 million total project, in which you'd have now $6.2 million or so that would be spent in that. So it's now less than half the
Right.
cost of the project.
It looks better and it's the same project.
And it's the same project,
I
right.
understand it's just all smoke and mirrors. I'm just saying,
So the big issue for the state is that, and they're familiar with all of this, as Jeff said, and they were involved in the discussion, but the big issue for them is, instead of getting a parking garage, they're going to be investing in, multi-use, mixed-use buildings,
and they're not big on residential, I know.
but have commercial on the first floor.
I know.
So
Right,
there's,
but-
right.
And keep in mind that we've kept phase two, right, the mixed income project on the pavilion lot is totally separate from this. And at this moment, there is no, or any indication that would ever be any DRI money.
Right.
Which is another wonderful optic, because it implies that there is a secondary project that is catalyzed by the DRI without
Which
any
isn't,
DRI funding.
right.
But in general, the state is very, a big proponent of bringing residential housing into downtown areas where there's services, including transportation and things like that. And so that's a big part of the governor's plan, even as she just laid out earlier this week. So, that is something that they like, even though they don't typically invest in it, correct?
All true.
Yeah.
What is there a plan F, which is where we are now, is what I'm saying.
No, we're following the suggestions made by
Okay.
the state agencies.
Just- okay,
So, I
good
mean,
enough.
we would have to then go, since you didn't like the plan you gave us.
Right.
Or
Right.
someone else, I mean,
Right.
theoretically, what you're talking about is somebody higher up says, for whatever reason.
Well, somebody has a sick sense of humor.
Right. Well, I'm just saying, it's a new year and new
Sure.
committee appointments and
Sure.
new.
Yeah.
So I just put it out there that,
Yeah,
yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
I think ultimately
Didn't
you
mean to-
come back and go,
No.
oh, Plan F.
yeah.
Exactly.
And you know what, that's not a bad thing to be saying to the Spring City people, which is, okay, what if they say, no, we're working on this, but we don't have our answer yet.
Right,
So
which is-
what is your next?
Yeah,
Right.
So, all right. I
sorry.
don't think it'd be bad for you to have that discussion with them. That's right. So. All right. Any other business to come before the board? I have none. We don't need an executive session. All right, so let's adjourn our meeting. We'll meet on February 9th, here at 8 AM.
Okay.
All right. What? February, what?
Okay. I'm
You
just
good?
over here.
February 9th.
You'll be
Did
here,
I
you can
say
fit us in. You can fit us in between your son and your fun. Thank you. Thank you, $263, Kara.
I was just signing to the guests. I was telling them they're on the next agenda. We didn't forget about them.
Oh, okay.
All right, motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned, thank you, sorry. And, so we do not have our chair of the LDC.
No, so you're going to act.
Well, here's my concern. I'm trying to push it back as far as possible, but I may have to leave, so I'm also concerned about the quorum. What will that do? Because
We'll
there's
still have a
resolutions, correct?
Yeah, we'll still have a
We'll
quorum.
still have a
Okay, so if you could take the lead, I'd appreciate it because.
Do you want me to? All right.
Please.
All right.
Because you're-
Only because I'm the secretary or something like that. All right, I'm calling to order the Greater Glens Falls Local Development Corporation meeting. This is our January 12th meeting, and we have a quorum. And we have our key staff and advisors, and we have guests, and that has already been recorded for us as part of the IDA meeting, so I'm not gonna go back through that. Our chair is not able to be here today with us. I'm not gonna do a chair report in his place. The minutes are before us. We've had them now for several days, December 8th, 2022 minutes. Any comments or changes?
So move.
Moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, John. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to approve the minutes is passed. The financial report, Mark, thank you for that. That is for ending December
12 months, yeah.
2022 for the full year. Any comments, Mark, that you want to add to that?
Just the usual, some Fitzgerald legal bills, the monthly
No,
insurance.
the financial report is what we're talking about, Mark, not the Schedule A yet.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Oh, sorry, okay.
Yeah,
You
the
paid 'em last month.
Expenses were
Right.
payroll, as usual, monthly insurance, and then the legal bill. $24,000 balloon payment from Hank's hit, so that loan disappears.
Oh, it did?
It came in
Okay.
last month and paid it.
Oh, wow,
Good.
okay.
So
Good
that,
for them.
that put, yeah, he was very happy, actually. But that-
Good.
That brings the USDA balance up to 184,000.
Okay.
Excellent. That means we have no other USDA
No, there's
loans
no other
outstanding
loans out.
except for Samantha's.
Except
Very
the-
good.
except the
Except the- which is
Which
not-
we're never gonna get.
Never gonna get, which is not, right.
Correct.
So the Samantha's is still in the books, you know, that the auditors wrote up last year for potential bad debt, 18,400,
Yep,
something like that.
18,429. Okay, very good.
That's it.
All right, any questions or comments for Mark? If not, is there a motion to approve the financial report for December 31, 2022 as presented? So moved, Jane?
Sure.
Is second?
Second.
John, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays, any abstentions? There being none, the motion is carried, the report is approved. So our Schedule A, everyone should have a copy of this. And do we have a Fitzgerald Morris Baker first for LDC?
Yeah, 864.
864?
Yeah.
That brings the total, I'm sorry, I did that wrong.
I don't have
So I'm just doing the total.
Right.
So our payment of, our Schedule A, 864 for Fitzgerald Morris Baker, 4 account temps, $530.12, 310, 76 cents, 201, 8 cents, 137 and 10 cents. And then our insurance funding for the January installment, $1,148.82. I have a total of $3,191.88. Yes?
Yes.
And then in addition to that, we have DRI payment due to CT Mail, $1,810. Any comments or changes, questions? There being none, is there a motion to approve that Schedule A as amended?
So moved.
Second.
Second, All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays, any abstentions? There being none, the motion is approved and the bills shall be paid. So we have disbursement of grant funds. There's 3 different items here. Pat, do you want to run through that?
Sure, very quickly, there's a motion for each one of these. The first one is additional sealant work on the Glen Street mural. When it was originally scoped, for whatever reason, the anti-graffiti coating was not included in it. So the
Is this
art,
the alley one or the?
no, this is the big one.
The big one.
Yeah, the Domino's
Yeah.
one.
That's a big number.
And so, yeah,
Is it done? Is the work
it's been done.
It's been done.
It was
So
done in
got
October, right?
Okay, it
yes,
got done
right.
before.
So this is just the payment of that bill. I thought we talked about it, and
We did.
I'd have to
We
go
did.
back and, okay, so this is the payment of that.
That's why I thought it was a different mural, because we, yeah.
Right. So, well, sometimes it takes a while to get the invoice
Yeah.
in the right way so that
Okay.
we can pay it.
And what's the
That's right.
dollar amount for that? I don't have the original. $4,000?
I'd have to,
That's
Thank
why,
you.
yeah.
thank you.
Okay. And then the Public Arts Trail Program Mural 3?
Yeah, mural 3, that's the payment for the final payment for the mural in the alley, which does have the anti-graffiti coating. So this will be the final piece of that. So that's a $20,000 payment to the final payment to the artist.
Yeah, 20,000.
20,000, no
Okay.
thousand, yep, that's it. And then the third one is part of GF Drive. It is the first disbursement to 42 Degrees Tavern. We approved about 3 or 4 meetings ago for 42 Degrees to purchase under the GF Drive program some tables and chairs, some under counter coolers, and I'm not sure if there was anything else, but it was the typical kind of thing, fixtures, furnitures, and equipment that GF Drive asks for. This disbursement for 42 Degrees is $44,2909. So
44,000.
no, 4,400. Sorry,
4,400.
$4,429.
Okay.
9
Yeah,
cents.
and 9
9
cents.
cents.
Yep.
Now, will they be coming back?
They'll come back for a final.
Okay, so it's,
This is the
This is-
first.
right,
Yeah, we
just-
have
They
not-
got their bill for something.
got it.
right. Yes.
And what's
So,
their address? 42
It's
Something or other.
Glen Street.
Yeah. Let me. I'll have to find it. I don't have it right here.
Sorry, it's on Glen Street though.
Yeah, Glen Street.
Is it 2? Yeah. I thought it was something like that.
With Betty's.
Right.
So those are the.
No, it's down
Further
further.
down.
It's down near the
I
bullpen.
need to go to it.
It's,
Opposite would be.
right, down near the bullpen. Yeah.
So those are the.
Oh, okay.
Those are the.
Oh, I know what it is now. It's right next to the bullpen.
Yeah.
All
Yes.
right, all right, all right.
So those are the 3 motions to approve the grant funds, and in all cases, we have collected the receipts and sent everything off to the state, and the state has now reimbursed us. And so what we want to do is now disperse that out to the people
Great.
Very good.
who've.
So we have this money in our.
We have this
We have
money,
the
yeah.
money.
Okay, so $4,000 for mural project 1, $20,000 for mural project 3, and $4,429.09 for 42 Degrees.
Correct.
GF Drive. Any additional questions or comments?
Do you need them as separate resolutions for?
I have them as separate resolutions, so I don't know if we need
I
to do
move
them.
all 3.
So we're gonna move all 3 resolutions
And
as
Mary-
presented?
As presented, and Mary
Second.
seconds all 3.
Excellent.
So we can all just, yeah.
Well
All
done.
in favor?
Aye.
Any nays, any abstentions? There being none, all 3 resolutions have passed. Any other reports, project reports? Do you want to do project reports?
Yes, I will. I don't have any other
Other
administrative reports, right?
Okay.
So what I want to do is I want to actually skip down, because I think Jeff has talked about some of it, and we can get back to the Spring City issue. What I want to do is talk quickly about the final resolution there to transfer the GF Drive financial obligation. Abby's Cookies, the business Abby's Cookies got a grant through the GF Drive program, which allowed them to purchase equipment and everything else like that for their business. The current owners are selling the business to a new owner, and all this resolution does, Kara, correct me if I'm wrong, is transfer the obligation, the GF Drive obligation, which is you've got to be in business 5 years and you've got to keep all of the equipment moving. Transfers that obligation from the old owner to the new owner.
And releases the old owner, Karen?
Our language, I don't believe indicates that in the assignment that they asked me to prepare the assignment, the attorneys are reviewing it.
And who's with
You
us
want me to
today?
release?
Just, could you introduce yourselves
I'm
again?
Andrew Cobb, owner of Happy Squeeze Yard, and then
I'm Taylor Supernaut, I'm buying it.
You're buying it.
Yes.
So old owner, new owner.
Yeah.
Very good.
Excellent. And we thank you for doing that.
Yes.
Yeah,
This is,
yeah,
I don't think it is, it's assignment and assumption. I can add that.
I think you should. I
It's-
think it's only fair.
so it's unnecessary. The old owners will continue to retain liability for the equipment. We just want to, I think it's fine. We just want to move forward so the Taylor can get to work.
Right.
So whatever you got written, attorneys or not, let's approve it.
It sounds a little like a motion to me. Anyway, but yes, so the point of the resolution, even as amended, which we can discuss, is to transfer that obligation so that the new owners Taylor.
Let it
The
go.
existing
Let it go.
agreement requires this
Yes.
board's written consent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. All right, so move.
And so I don't know that we need to have in detail all aspects of the agreement, but if council approves.
What transpired is that they each have separate counsel. Their counsel reached out to me and asked me to prepare the assignment because they didn't want it. They just
Right.
wanted me to prepare the assignment. So I prepared the assignment, which has a portion that indicates that the LDC has consented to this assignment pursuant to this section of the
Excellent, yeah.
contract.
Okay.
So it's just an assignment so I asked their counsel for the documents that they have relating to the sale, or their transfer. They provided me with a draft bill of sale, and I'm just gonna ask for a signed copy of that when it's received, and then we can sign this assignment whenever,
Okay.
if you want.
Any other questions or comments? So there being none, is there a motion to approve the transfer and for Kara to execute those documents on our behalf, or to bring the mayor or any other board members in that may need to sign those as well?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion is carried.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you,
Yes.
folks. Appreciate
Sorry,
it.
Yeah.
I didn't realize, sorry to make you stay out through
Jim warned us. He told us we should.
this. All right.
Okay, we're good.
Thank you kindly.
Thank you for coming. Please go get some cookies made so that we won't.
Yes,
go-
yes.
The car's like right there. You gotta be careful.
All right.
All right, so now we can do the DRI report with Jeff and the resolution that has been prepared for that.
Okay.
So, Jeff, I
Yeah, well,
don't know if you have any more updates.
well, no, other than the fact that there is a request you'll see there for a contingent extension. You may recall that Bonaccio originally had an option, right, to purchase the two LDC-owned properties, 45 South and 36 Elm. That original option expired at the end of, I believe, September, and at that point, they asked for an extension to the end of the year. That has thus now expired as well, so I believe there's a resolution to extend that again, and again, hopefully for the last time, if in fact we end up moving
Do
forward.
we want to extend it longer this time in case
Yeah, I
we
was
can plan
gonna
that?
They've
Yeah, do we want a contingency for the contingency?
The letter that they sent on January 3rd speaks to two parts. It speaks to the request to the city, which in some ways vary from what they're requesting to the LDC to sell the two parcels, but specifically with request to our purchase and sale agreement, they requested an extension of the due diligence period through June 1st of 2023. So if they extended it out all that, if they extended it out all that time, then the contract says closing to occur within 30 days of the termination of the due diligence period. So if they extended all that time, it would be to July.
July.
So that's what they're requesting to you specifically.
No, that seems.
So because of that request, and if they do use all of that time, they've asked for amendments to the project agreements to extend out all those other
Sure.
dates by that period of time. So but the direct request to the LDC is, will you extend your sale agreement to those dates?
because this is in part being held up by the Empire State Development and we don't have an answer from them yet, should we just add another 2 or 3 months
That's what I was thinking.
on that?
That's
So
what
that
I'm
we don't
thinking.
have to keep doing.
So September 1st.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're at June 1st already, September 1st.
Let's do end of the
I
third
think
quarter, September 30.
This is not a one-way street. They may not,
Want to.
okay, so I can't help the way my brain works, so just forgive me. But should things still be a mess come June? Should this not conclude in June? This
may not.
agreement allows them, they're out. So we'd have to ask them if they want September.
Doesn't it also in some ways liberate us if?
Well, do we
something
want to
went
be
south?
liberated? I mean,
Well,
seriously.
no.
Right.
No,
Right.
I'm saying
Wanna
if
put
they
it
did, they
back
could
on
say,
the
well, we
market?
still have, we're not doing
Right.
anything, we still have the option until the end of September. Let's say for whatever reason, things went sideways or south in May.
No, because they would have the right during that time frame to,
Right,
Come
yeah,
back.
to say, we're not moving forward.
right. That's,
At any
Right.
time, it would be at their discretion.
right.
Okay.
All right, well, let's give them
It's not gonna
then
guarantee
what
they're
they've
gonna
asked for then.
That's,
All
I
right.
mean,
That's
what,
what
That's
no
what they've
harm, no
asked.
foul to
That's
us.
right. Okay.
We're gonna be meeting anyway, it's
True.
just one more motion for us. It gives us something to do.
As if the
But-
meetings weren't long enough.
Right, exactly, exactly. But I just don't think that thinking for
My
them is.
recommendation would be to
yeah.
stick with what they've had, because
Thank-
that date also backs into all these other dates
Yeah.
through
Okay.
the other agreements. so.
Okay.
All right,
Okay.
But I can tell,
I
I won't
get
say
you.
anything, I'll sign this.
Okay, right,
all right.
okay.
So, is there a motion to
Probably watch it.
accept, is there a motion to accept the contingency extension request as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Jack. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays and extension, any exceptions? There being none, the motion is carried. Any update on either the Market Center building or small business
None at this
recovery?
time beyond what I said previously about going before the planning board.
Okay. Any other business, Patrick? Any?
Nope, not as far as I know.
And
You
no
made it.
discussion?
Denise, you made it.
All right.
I think we should entertain a motion to close the
Adjourn.
meeting.
All right, and so, just as a reminder for the minutes, we are considering changing
March.
Right,
the
that's
March
right.
meeting to possibly March 30th,
Somebody
so
will
we're
let us
holding
know.
that,
I'll be on vacation.
and we'll know
No.
that as soon, and,
Me too.
yeah. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second, all right. All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you.